Welcome. So today's podcast is with Matt Langley, and if you're interested in the college pathway, then this is one you don't want to miss. So Matt has a wealth of experience. He went to Middle Tennessee himself. He then coached there for 2 years. He coached at Arizona State for 9 years. He picked up ATP points after his college journey. He's an Adelaide boy. He was high-level ranked junior in the state and Australia, and then took a lot away from the college pathway. And then since then, he's actually created his own college agency, so where he recruits players and helps them get to the best possible college and the best possible opportunity that is very personalized for them. And I think that's what stands out in this conversation is through his experience playing and then actually coaching and then building a network of other coaches around the States. He's actually been able to place players or help players understand the college pathway perfectly, do all the legwork to get them there, and actually give them the right experience that's going to be tailored perfectly to them, which is very, very unique. And I think there wouldn't be many other people around in a similar role that actually has the experience that he has. So someone that I really enjoy talking to, because for me as a coach, I want to learn about the college pathway to help my players. It's a very important pathway. It's so hard to become professional. When we talk about professional, we're probably talking about top 100. So it's something that is really important to consider. And Matt is the man. He knows everything in that space. And we had an amazing conversation, and I'm really excited for you to hear it today. Good? Okay. Matt, welcome back to Adelaide, mate. It's been a while. When was the last time you were here?
Would have been 6 years, and then probably before that, another 3 or 3.5 years. So it's probably only twice I've been back in the last 10 years or so. So it hasn't been too much at all.
Yeah, but you grew up here, and you've played all your junior career here and then in Australia, right?
Correct, yeah. So I grew up, probably the first club that I would have played at would have been West Lakes Tennis Club, maybe just for a season or so, and then moved over to Seaside. Got coached by Jason Kempf and Sharon Hambley. I think she's still out there.
Rocking.
Yep, still going. And then, just the state squads. I think that was the system then. Probably would have been like the talent squad, I think was the name of that. And then just the state squad. I think the coaches were Kylie Moulds, worked with there in the youngest age group. And then Mark McMahon and Graham Neville when I got a little bit older and things like that. Went through high school at Marriottville. And then, went over to play college tennis and things like that, and have pretty much stayed there for the last 15 years. So It's been a quick journey, but a good one.
Yeah, amazing. What was your junior experience like, let's say from the age of, 12 to 18 before you went to college?
Yep.
How much were you training? What was the kind of culture like in Adelaide at that time?
Yep. Yeah, so I just actually had a coffee with Matt Stevens and just sort of reminiscing about those days we used to practice together and train together. But having coached in college and coached overseas now and seen a lot of, quality junior players come through, sort of very lucky and fortunate, I guess, to look back and realise, I guess, how well structured and how good the training was. Maybe a little bit limited on the competition side and maybe the international travel, which might have limited me a little bit. But as far as the work that we did, the level of coaching that we received, the physiotherapy work with Lyndon Hoof, who was, I thought, world class and things like that was fantastic. I mean, a typical sort of week for us, we'd go, Monday to Friday with the squad here at the Drive, probably 2 days of the week. On a Tuesday, Thursday, we'd have Mark and G come out to Marriottville. We'd do some work with them during the day. And then, on a Thursday would be maybe a cross-training day that would work with Lyndon. And then on the weekends, we'd sort of play like local comp in the juniors and seniors and stuff like that. So, as you get a little bit older, you're playing tournaments during the school holidays and things like that. But that would be a pretty generic or typical week as far as training or practice went. Yeah.
Sure. Did you travel around Australia and play like national tournaments? Did you go interstate a fair bit during that time?
Yeah, exactly. But it's more just the school holidays, right? You got 2 weeks in between term 1 and 2, 2 weeks between term 2 and 3, and the same between term 3 and 4. And probably back then they had the hard court nationals during January, which is now the December showdown. And then we'd have sort of 2 weeks that would be the grass court nationals, usually in Mildura was for the 14s and the 16s. I think the 12s was in Yarrawonga. I never played the 12s in Yarrawonga, but the 14s and 16s, that have a lead-in tournament and then the national championship the next week. And then probably between the next terms would be the clay court nationals. Same thing, would be a lead-in and then a national tournament. And they were pretty much the events that you'd play. You know, locally here you'd have, you know, the SA Junior State Championships or the Golden Crumpets or the April Age or whatever they call them, but pretty limited from as I said, like a competition standpoint, I guess, compared to what other juniors maybe are doing around the world, or especially what kids are doing now, for sure.
It's a lot more overseas trips now.
Exactly.
People kind of knowing just through having the internet and seeing a little bit more that they know kind of what the pathway is or what needs to be done to kind of be around the mark at more of an international level.
Yep.
What made you a strong player at that point? What attributes did you bring to the court that made you like quite a strong player here in Australia?
As a junior?
Yeah, as a junior.
Yeah, I think probably a skill set or an attribute I had was probably an athletic kid. You know what I mean? I was always pretty fit, moved well, you know, pretty resilient, pretty gritty and stuff like that. Just technically was pretty good, but I think everybody around here is pretty much technically good in my experience. I think when you go overseas, you see a lot of interesting things from a technical standpoint. So I think technically in Australia, a lot of the kids grow up and they have a good technical foundation, which is good. But yeah, just a pretty good athlete, I think. One thing I probably wasn't great at as a junior, and it took a little bit of time to develop, and this is going back into the competition piece and maybe being a little bit of a late bloomer to that, was just, you know, handling adverse situations, handling my emotions, not getting frustrated, not getting angry on the court and things like that. And it just, it took me longer to figure that piece out, but I think that's probably due to the fact of not really having that exposure to as much competition as some of the other juniors did, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel like you didn't maybe have the mentorship around that when growing up?
Yeah, I don't know if that's fair to say. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's on your shoulders and up to you to, you know, be mature and develop those skills. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that's, you know, looking back, I would definitely put that on myself. You know what I mean? As far as you're not being more mature at the time, you know what I mean?
It. Yeah,
but so just
but do you think we're maybe better at or have maybe more awareness to teach that now to the juniors coming through with the coaching now that we do?
I'm not sure. I'm not around here enough to really comment on the coaching.
Sure.
If I'm being totally honest though, just seeing the product of the players that come through, whether it's Aussie juniors, whether it's, you know, juniors from Europe, I would still say that the Aussie juniors are much more underdone from a mental resilient standpoint, or handling adversity and that kind of standpoint, than some of the Europeans or players from other countries.
It's hard because we're just in our bubble. We're so far from everything.
Correct.
And I think you get that maturity from going outside your bubble and traveling a lot. But if you're so far away, it's
a challenge. Yeah, obviously financially, it's a stretch, and I don't think you have to be doing it every week and traveling every other week and, you know, and doing that kind of thing. But even just one international trip, just to sort of get your feet wet and see the level that's out there and see what's happening around you, I think is something that you can learn a lot from. I mean, the first time I went overseas was when I went to play college tennis when I was 18.
Okay.
You know, so that's, you know, if I had my time again, like, I think that's really, really late to sort of do a first initial trip like that. I always had this big idea that, you know, there's other players around the world, they must be so amazing and I'm way better than I am, and all these thoughts would go through my head. And then I guess as you get older and you travel overseas and you're playing on college teams with, you know, a player that was, you know, a top junior, or they'd played in the junior slams, it's sort of like, well, hang on a minute, they're not really what I thought they were, and things like that. So I just think learning that at a younger age is really, really beneficial, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Was college always the pathway for you? Is that what you guys were thinking as a family and for yourself, and what led you to go to college? Yeah,
I guess, you know, my mum was probably always big on education. You know, I think the homeschool pathway is, I don't know if it is now, but it wasn't very well explored here in Australia much when I was growing up at all. Pretty much everybody went to school full time, and then we trained after school and things like that. Over in the States, it's a lot different. You know, a lot of the kids are doing homeschool. my opinion, for whatever it's worth. I mean, everybody's different. I think you can still go to school, and then train full time. I definitely don't think you need to do homeschool, but that's just sort of me. I think you can manage and make it work and learn a lot from a time management standpoint. But from a college tennis aspect, no, I wouldn't. I think growing up in Australia or any other country outside of the US, when you grow up, probably your mentality is, hey, I'm trying to play tennis to be a professional tennis player, right? Whereas in the US, the kids, they grow up and they grow up in a state and they get affiliated with the university, and that's a lot of their dreams. It's like, okay, growing up and I'm training here so I can play college at the school that I want to play at. So it's a very different mentality. I think growing up playing here, every kid is like, no, I'm trying to play in the Australian Open and I want to be a professional tennis player, and then, but yeah, as I said, for my family, like, education was always a big piece. And, when you're really honest and you reflect and you look around, it's like, well, I'm not playing in the slams right now, so I'm not a pro player. And, I still want to continue playing at a high level, and, I want to get an education behind me as well. So it's really a no-brainer, if you fall into that category and you're not already at that mark,
Yeah. And where did you go, and how was your initial experience?
Yeah, so I went to a school, Middle Tennessee. Coach was David McNamara. He's from Melbourne, Victoria, and that was sort of my initial connection there. Wacky, we call him, was strong play. He was an All-American over there, and probably 400 in singles and maybe 200 in doubles. So good player. And then there was two other Australians on the team, John Peers and Rob McKenzie. So I sort of had that Aussie connection, and that's initially where I went to school. And I went over in January after doing a year of uni here at UniSA, and then did my 3.5 years there. Graduated, met my fiance, my wife now, and that's pretty much which is why we sort of stayed over in the States since. But I had a great experience. I think I learned so much just from a maturity standpoint. As I said, I think technically and tactically and all of those skills that I learned from coaches here were about as good as you can get. And then I just sort of figured out the competing piece and, how to travel, because that's another aspect too. It's like you'll often, this is going on a bit of a tangent here, but you'll hear, this player, chases points, or they go there and it's easy to win there. And it's like, well, yes and no, you know what I mean? Maybe the level is weaker there, but you've still got to have the maturity and the mental capacity to get there and, not feel homesick and not lose your mind on the court and things like that, which is not that easy, So, and that's where I think you'll still see a lot of the Aussies. It's hard for the Aussies on the tour because you're away from home for so long, and it's tough to keep it together compared to some of the other players from other nations,
Yeah, 100%. I was speaking to Matt, and he was saying that some people go to college and they don't get better.
Yep.
They end up getting worse, maybe get lost in kind of the whole social side, or not being able to balance academics, for example, and the rigorous workload that you obviously have to train in to play at a high level college. But he said about you that you seem to get a lot better in that environment than what you were here, and came back a lot stronger. So what was it about that environment, and how did you start to actually improve to go to a higher level in that environment? Yeah,
I think the biggest thing, it's really up to the player, that environment, as to how good you want to get, right? All of the resources are there for you, as far as you've got your coaches, you can do individual private practices, you've always got your team practice or your group practice, but everything's at your disposal. If you want to go to the gym, well, you've got a gym right there. I mean, Next Generation is probably maybe the marquee gym in Adelaide or whatever, right at your school. Every student at the school has, the ability to go to a Next Generation on campus. But then as an athlete, you've got probably 2, 3, 4 other gyms that you can go to anytime. You know what I mean? You've got a strength and conditioning coach. You've got, access to sports psych. You've got access to nutritionists. You can just use all of these things at your disposal, or just how much you want to use them and how good you really want to get. If you want to make the time in the day to, hit serves, or if you want to make the time in the day to play sets with somebody, you've got practice partners there at your disposal, and it's just a matter of if you want to use them or not. A lot of people, they go over and, the social aspect gets more important for them, or the academics get more important for them, and that's fine. It just really depends on your preferences and priority about how you want to use your time. And I guess towards the end of my, college career, I guess you could call it there, I just really sort of dove into practicing as much as I could, and hitting with the other guys on the team outside of practice, and just playing matches, and I just loved it. You know what I mean? I always loved the sport, and it's a little bit my personality, I guess. When I get addicted to something, I really sort of go all at it, and yeah, it just worked out well for me, for sure.
Yeah, amazing. It's really cool to hear that it does come down to the player, because you do have all those things available, and it is up to you whether you take that opportunity on. And like you said, if you do want to get into the social side of things, that's cool too. But just know that you're probably not going to, take or work towards your highest potential on the tennis court. So, did you guys as a team and as a college tennis team have that culture where you guys like really had each other's back and everyone was really trying to drive that standard up? Is that something that was instilled from the coaching, or was that just you personally driving that ship?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, right? Because being on the other side of it, coaching, you talk to players and I want to go to a good culture. I want to go to a team that has a good culture. Well, that's going to change every year. You've got players coming in every year, new freshmen, and you've got players graduating as seniors every year. So I think, again, it really comes down to what you want as an individual. You know what I mean? If you're an individual and you're motivated and you're dedicated, well, you're going to drive the ship. And if you want to be good, well, guess what? The team's probably going to be good as well. So to be honest, I think during my 4 years there, I went through probably 4 different teams. You know what I mean? As far as like the culture of the team and the training environment of the team, how motivated players were, and take John Pierce for an example. He was super motivated, and that's why he turned out to have a really great career. Like, he was always training hard, always doing extra, wanted to be good. And then probably that was when I came in as a freshman, and then probably when I was a senior my last year. The team was pretty motivated. You know what I mean? We'd get guys out after practice and practice under the lights and do our own thing. And it's funny enough, sometimes the coach hated it, but because we're probably doing too much. But it was great. I loved it. You know what I mean? We had a good culture where everybody was pushing each other, and it helped us all get a lot better, I think.
Yeah, that's elite. Did the coach and as a team, did you set kind of values or standards, like rules within the team that you all had to stick by? Was there any of kind of that within the college culture that you were in?
As a player?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, so it comes back, as a player, I think a lot of it, I think, is, how do I answer this question? Like, as a coach, right? You've always got the stock standard, team rules and, values that you want the players to stick by. But I think it really comes down to a little bit of unspoken rule. You know what I mean? You're always talking about holding each other accountable and getting better. But hey, what is the standard? You know what I mean? If I go out and I want to be a good player and I'm practicing and I'm giving it you know what you can expect from me. You can sort of trust me, and I know that I can trust you as a player, and you're giving me a good practice and those kinds of things. So I think it's a little bit more even unspoken than it is, hey, let's write it on paper, and you're going to work hard and I'm going to work hard, and just doing it. You know what I mean?
That's why Nike's so famous. Just do it, baby. Were there some really key memorable moments, if you look back on your career, on some just matches or memories or moments through that still you probably think about to this day?
Yeah, I mean, I had some good moments in college. Like, it's a different environment, and that's what makes it so much fun, I think. You're playing on a team, and that's really unique to the sport of tennis, right? You're always competing as an individual, and you still are. You're still playing a singles match, but it just means a little bit more, and I think it's a little bit more pressure on the line when you're having to play for the team and get your point for the team than just winning the match for yourself. And that's why I think college can be a very, very good developmental pathway, just because the competitive aspect. If you go out to a 15K or a 25K and you watch every match for the tournament, especially here in Australia, I'll be honest, you're probably going to see a few tanks. Yep.
I've seen it.
Yeah, you're not seeing that over there at the higher level. There's sort of the spotlight is on you. If you're tanking, you're not playing the next match. You know what I mean? You probably won't be on that team the next semester, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? There's a lot of investment that goes into it. From the university investing a lot into the player. So I think the expectation is quite high from the coaching staff and the team, and that everybody sort of needs to perform. So that's just not really, it doesn't happen over there at all. And that was something that helped me get a lot better. There's no matches that are easy. You know what I mean? Even if it isn't a quality player from a technical standpoint, or they're just not as good. They're still hard to beat because they don't go away.
Yeah.
And I think that still does happen a lot over here, if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah, it's just facts, really. You're spot on. I mean, I think that element of just that competitive pressure cooker mixed in with how many matches you're actually playing, you're becoming so match hardened, so you become a little bit more accustomed to pressure. And then also the other thing that I was thinking about that I think is quite unique to college is the real rowdy atmosphere.
Yep.
Right? I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but did that really make it a lot easier when you're competing outside of that environment? Because you got people like heckling you, you got people like in your face, you got people like stomping in the
on the bleachers and making noise,
making a lot of noise,
Yep.
and you got to really center yourself
Yep.
and remove that, and not let it distract you, and lock in and still do the job under a lot of pressure to get the job done for your team. So did that make it a lot easier for you afterwards, being in that environment?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that I probably as a junior would have. I did. Any little piece of adversity, you'd always sort of find an excuse that this is why or that's why. And I think when you go over there, it's nobody really cares. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you better figure out a way to turn it off and sort of concentrate and focus and make it work. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful for your team. So coming back here, yeah, I definitely felt like the level I was playing at, let's be honest, like I wasn't playing slam level and stuff like that, but definitely more mentally stronger than a lot of the players that were a similar level to me. I felt like coming back here after college for sure.
Sure. Well, you came back and you got points straight away, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, like that's still obviously we know that's not slam level, right? But it's quite a high level still. So how was that when you came back and you were able to compete here in Australia? What did you find was different to obviously before you went to college?
Yep. Yeah, one of the biggest differences, so I touched on it a little bit before, I think, like technically and stroke production wise and just eye candy, I guess I'll call it. You'll be hard pressed to find players here that don't look like good players, or they're good hitters, which is great, but there's a lot more to tennis than looking like a good hitter or being a good hitter of the ball and stuff like that. And people can have some pretty messy strokes and unorthodox strokes, and they just tough and they sort of compete and they don't give you unforced errors on the big points, and they're just always coming at you. You know what I mean? So I think that definitely, it took me a while to learn that, I'll be honest, over there in college, because you'd not really seen it here before. But then once I sort of got the hang of that, I really embraced it. It's sort of like you go into every match and you're ready for battle, like whatever it's going to take, and you're ready to go. So when I came back, I didn't find that, to be honest, in every match that I played against. So there's some sort of easier matches. You get on top of somebody a little bit and they go away pretty quickly. I mean, obviously the better quality players don't. But yeah, more so here, I'd say like a local level, like or there was like an Asia Pacific Tennis League, an ATL, or some of the AMTs. They used to have a money circuit here that you'd play. You'd get a little bit of that for sure.
Mm. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And yeah, that tough environment would have shaped you to run over the players when they tapped out a little bit more. So from there, you finished. Were you back in Australia for a bit? What made you then go back over to actually pursue a coaching pathway at college? Yeah. So I guess initially, so I got engaged right after I sort of finished college.
Okay.
My
wife she's from Tennessee, so we met in school. She came over with me for probably, she was here 6 months and I was maybe here 9 months because our wedding was back in the States in Tennessee. So I guess the plan for me was, after college, I wanted to play for a little bit. I wanted to get an ATP ranking. Obviously the higher you climb, the more investment it is. You know what I mean? I'm probably 22 years old at the time, and it's, realistically, it's like, hey, I'm not going to be a top 100 player. How much do I really want to sacrifice here to get a number next to my name? Because, I'll be honest, like it's a little bit of a personal pride thing. Whether you're 500 in the world or 1500 in the world, it sounds a little bit, nobody really cares. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like, you had an ATP point, you had an ATP ranking. If you want to work at a country club, those kind of people, like, oh, great, you played, but they're not they don't really value somebody that's 512 in the world. They're like, oh, probably weren't very good, So to get to that ranking or whatever, it's more just personal pride. So I just wanted to play really for a little bit, get an ATP ranking, and then the plan actually was to probably stay here in Australia. But then when we got back and got married there, was my wife started grad school, and I sort of just fell into college coaching in a way. You know what I mean? And then sort of my personality, I get sort of addicted to it, want to be good at it. Really dived into the recruiting side of it, got some quality players in, made the team a lot better. And then it just sort of took off from there, And then I was in it for 11 years, And it sort of 1 year rolls into the next, and when you're sort of doing it at that level, there's not a lot of time off,
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool, actually. What when you started that role, was it different to what you thought it would be being on the other side? Like, you were obviously the player, and then now you're the coach.
Yeah.
Were there some things that you surprised you when you got started in that role?
And initially, I think so much has changed probably in the last 10 years in the college system than it was, today than it was 10 years ago. So looking back 11 years ago, I really wasn't that far removed from being a player to coaching. And I obviously did it at the same school, you know what I mean? So it was a really familiar environment. I sort of knew the ins and outs of the school, but there's definitely things on the coaching side of it that you had no idea that happened as a player. As a player, you just show up for your practice, you get couriered around here, you get on your flight, you play your match, you go out to dinner with the team, and you're sort of done. Obviously on the coaching side, it's everything sort of other than that, you know what I mean? You're doing all of the preparation, all of the planning, all of the managing, and that kind of thing. But then as the years went on, I felt like there was even so many more things that were just different on the other side of it. As you got more into it, I guess the rules are always changing with college tennis, and that's something that you got to keep up to date with for sure. But I just felt like it got so different than being a player, and there's so many things that as a coach, I'm like, I had no idea this is what it's like as a player.
What were those things?
I mean, you're doing compliance meetings, all the written tests that you've got to do, even just to get to be able to recruit off campus. When you recruit off campus, what it actually looks like, your daily life to try to get these players, the negotiations you're having with them and their families, the amount of travel you're doing as a coach, and then you might get back on a Monday night at 10:30 from a pro tournament in Lubbock, Texas, and then I'm leaving Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. with two other players to go to another tournament. So as a player, you don't really think about that. You're like, oh, I'm going on my tournament Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Matt's going to be there. He's going to be with us. It's like, I'm sort of going into that already having been on the road for 12 days, a little bit fried, but then you're having to show up and be like, all right, like I'm super excited. I'm ready to go on this trip. And you know what I mean? It's sort of like trying to always bring your A game for that player, but deep down you're pretty fried,
Yeah, not the environment or the role for someone that can't grind it out or doesn't love it, essentially.
Yeah, it's full on for sure. You've almost got to be more. I mean, being a player is very taxing. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's even more. You've got so many more balls to juggle and stuff like that as a player. You just. I mean, it sounds easy, and don't get me wrong, I'm not downplaying it. Like, you got to go to class, and you got to go to practice, and you got to play your matches, but that's it. You know what I mean? You've got to handle those three things. As a coach, it's sort of like, okay, I've got 8 players on the team. I've got to treat them as 8 individuals. You know what I mean? I've got to make a development plan for each one of those 8 players and make them feel like they're the only player that I'm working with. You know what I mean? For them to feel like they're a valued player of the team, that they're getting better, they're getting the most out of their experience. While I'm doing that, so I'm, not only developing those plans for them, I'm practicing with them individually. So they're getting their private sessions, all 8. And then you've got your team practice as well that you're doing in the afternoon. So you're on the court. I was on the court probably 6 hours a day just with the team. You do 4 individuals, and then you've got obviously the team practice that you're doing with everybody out there. And then at the same time, I mean, probably the lifeblood of any program is recruiting. I mean, you're competing against every other big school to try to get the same, top 50 players in the world. So you're getting on a plane to go to a country to try to get a player, and then other coaches are doing that as well, and then you're bringing them in on an official visit, all while you're doing your individuals and your team practice. You're hosting a player that's come over from, let's say, Spain, and trying to get them to commit to the team at the same time, and then you're still traveling and competing and got a coach in the matches and things like that too. So it gets full on.
I'm tired already.
Yeah.
Dill, you tired after listening to all of that, mate? Wow. That's it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't think people would realise that. So when you paint it like that, I think it's not for the faint-hearted. Like there are so many different things that you have to do to actually make the team run, and to get everything working cohesively. Was there a time where you started to feel really fried from that? Like you cooked you or burnt you out after a period of that?
For sure.
That's pretty full on, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, I'll be honest, I think a lot of coaches feel like that a lot of the time, but you sort of just get, it sort of becomes your lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's not really it is a job, but it's not really a job, because you're in it 7 days a week. You know what I mean? Like, okay, say you compete on, in the Pac-12, we compete on a Friday and Saturday, and you might have had a Sunday off, but during that Sunday, you got players texting you, or you're on calls with recruits and stuff like that. So then, Monday morning, you're back at it again, and that's on an off day. If you're competing on Friday and Sunday that weekend, well, you're traveling back on a Sunday night, and then you're sort of back to it on Monday morning and whatever. You might have receipts from the trip that you got to get to the director of ops and sort of stuff like that too. So, yeah, but I think just 1 year rolls into the next and into the next and into the next, and it's very easy to get caught up in it. And I think a lot of coaches, honestly, they do get caught up in it, and it's sort of like, well, this is what I do, and then you look back, it's like, oh, gee, that's been 10 years. You know what I mean? I think it is very difficult to have, a husband and wife, or, partner, kids and stuff like that in the profession. When you start to look around, it's like, yeah, hang on a minute, there's not really that many people that are doing it with that. You know what I mean? So not something that long term, I really wanted. You know what I mean? I sort of value that side of it, and each to their own, but... Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a trade-off, right?
Yep.
There's so many people in tennis that don't have that family dynamic, because tennis is so grueling, whether you're a coach or a player.
Right.
Just being on the road all the time, and the full commitment and dedication, it doesn't really allow a space to have a family, or you've got to have someone that's super understanding, that understands the lifestyle, and wants to stick by you no matter what. And that's pretty hard to find sometimes. So I'm guessing your wife, super supportive and just trusted you, or were there hard moments as well, being on the road and actually having a marriage? And
oh, for sure. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? I think first of all, super supportive. Yep. I've got an awesome wife, and we have two kids and stuff like that. But absolutely, especially when you start to have the first child, it's not easy. You know what I mean? And then you're away so much, and you want to get back and spend time with them, but now you got half a day off, and it's like, I just want to have a little nap here. You know what I mean? So it's definitely tough. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of coaches would probably feel the same way. If you're doing it at a level where you want to try to really compete and win it all and stuff like that in Division 1 of college tennis.
Yeah. Do you have some really proud moments as a coach, looking back at things that you go, wow, like we killed it here, or this moment with this player here, or this season here was epic? Yeah,
I think obviously the moments that you remember, right, are sort of the results on the court. You know what I mean? If the team has a big win or a big result or something like that, that's always sort of the forefront that comes to your mind. If you win a big match. But yeah, like I think and it's easier said than done. I think you got to try to look for some of the victories like throughout the day. It's a roller coaster ride as a coach, for sure. And I see it's hard to handle for a lot of people, because you're on a super high. You think you've just got a commitment from a great player. They're going to come in, and then you might get a message, less than 24 hours later that, hey, I'm going to decommit. I'm going to this school. I'm going, it's like, and then the emotions are sort of on a downer. And so it's hard to sort of keep an even keel, and why you're handling all those sort of emotions you've got to try to be level-headed with the players in front of you that you're working with now. Otherwise, they're like, hang on a second, like, my coach is bipolar, you know? So, but as far as like moments, I mean, one year we made the final of the Pac-12 championship. We went on a bit of a run there. We beat USC, twice. We beat UCLA. We beat Cal twice that year. Beat Stanford, which is, I mean, that's about as good as it can get. You know what I mean? In Division I women's college tennis.
Because they're all kind of around the mark in top 10.
Yeah, I mean, Stanford's probably, they are historically the best program in women's tennis. They've won 20 or 21 national titles. So any time you can beat them is a good win. And we ended up losing to them in the final of the conference championship. But it's it's a good moment. Obviously, the final, it's in Ojai, California. It's on television, you know what I mean? You get a good crowd for it. It's just a really cool tournament that they host there. So that'd be a memory as a coach. I think that was a really good one. We made the national indoors. You know, it's the top 16 teams or top 15 teams have to qualify for it. So you're sort of around the mark, I think, if you're in those sort of top 16 teams. So anytime we were able to qualify for those, those events, national indoors, or whether it's a Sweet 16 or anything like that, I think you're sort of can pat yourself on the back and be like, okay, I'm doing a pretty good job here and stuff like that. So
what was going right and what was so good about the lineup when you made the final of the national championship and had some of those big wins?
Yeah, I think it clicks a little bit. You know what I mean? I think when you get a little moment, obviously the talent's got to be there. You know what I mean? I'd be lying to say like you can win if you don't have the talent, right? Because the way tennis works is you've got 3 doubles and 6 singles matches, and you got to get 4 points. The doubles point counts as 1, so you got to win 2 out of the 3 doubles matches, and then you've got to win. If you do win the doubles point, you've got to split singles, win 3 out of the 6. Where was I going with that?
What was so good about the squad of that year? Like you said, a couple of things sort of come together,
right? So you've got to have the talent because you can't just have one fluky result at, say, 2 singles, or you're still going to lose the overall match 6-1. Sure. You know what I mean? So you've got to have talent throughout the lineup that can win at all of those spots. But then I think when, each individual player is having success and they feel like they're playing well and they're competing hard, it all sort of, gels together or rides together. So I think it's that balance, right? Yeah, they're competing for the team, but you've got to have them to buy in that they're really fighting hard for that team so that they're going to get an individual result that's going to help the team. You know what I mean? So it's an individual match, but you need everybody clicking on all sort of 6 cylinders to get the points to win. So I just think, we just rode a little bit of a wave. That season we had, we actually had to play a few matches with 5. We had a couple of, this is another one of the emotional roller coasters. So had a girl on the team, that was supposed to be on the team, committed, ended up doing really, really well. She got to 140 in the world, probably the week before school was supposed to start. Hey, Matt, I'm not coming anymore. Okay, well, that hurts. You know what I mean? You get a player that's at that level. And this was the year that probably Emma Navarro and Peyton Stearns were probably the 2 top players in the country. And I thought this girl, Tara Worth, that was supposed to come in was going to be at least as good as them at the time. As I said, she got to about 140, 145. A week before school, I'm not going to come. I've got a couple of wild cards into these tournaments. All right, I'll come in January. And then it gets to the point where, okay, I'm not sure if you're going to come in January, but we'll see. And it gets to October anyway. No, I'm doing really well. I'm gonna stay pro. Fair enough. Absolutely. You're doing well. Makes sense. But then obviously we got an injury on the team. We had to go into some matches with really 5 players and a non-scholarship player that's just not quite the same level as everybody else on the team. So we're having to play against other good programs with 5, and we ended up winning some of those matches with 5 because I think the 5 figured out that, hey, for us to win here, we all have to really bring our A game and really bring our best. So then when we got, the 6th scholarship player back in the lineup at that time for the conference championship, we were sort of clicking there. You know what I mean? It's like, hang on, we've won with 5, and now we've actually got full 6. We can sort of compete. We can beat anybody. And that's just sort of the way it rode out that year a little bit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Who are some of the players that you look back on? Obviously, you would have worked with so many different players throughout the 11 years, but are there a select few that stand out for different reasons that you go like, wow, there's something about them, though, they had something super special, or I really like this person for this reason? Is there anyone that you still think about?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting when you talk to coaches about this sort of stuff. College, no, I don't, the politically correct response would be like, I don't have favourites and that. But for sure you do, you know what I mean? I guess when and I don't know what, like when I first started coaching, I don't know if it was like really fresh and I was really new to me. I have really good memories of some of those players on those teams. And I don't know if it was almost because as well, you're a little bit closer in age, maybe two. But I'll look back on some of those initial teams at both schools because I started at Middle Tennessee and then I coached at Arizona State. And they weren't necessarily the best player on the team or they weren't an All-American, but just had a good relationship with them, and I think they really enjoyed their time and probably won a lot of matches because it was fun for them. I guess a couple that come to mind, like I would say at Middle Tennessee when I first started coaching, recruited a player from Italy really late. She was 22 years old. She'd done 3 years of university there. Just loved her as a person, you know what I mean? Sort of soul of the earth, like just really receptive, like, even then when I went to ASU and recruited, stayed at her house there near Venice in Italy and stuff like that. So just got those relationships. Britt Huxley was another Australian that was at Arkansas. She transferred over to Middle Tennessee, had a great relationship with Britt. And then when I came to Arizona State, like Gussie O'Sullivan from Melbourne, just a grinder, all heart, you know what I mean? I sort of love that kind of player that maybe gets a little bit overlooked because they don't have the ball striking and coaches are sort of drawn to the eye candy of like, oh, they got a huge serve, they got a huge forehand. Love that player. I'm sort of like, I sort of like looking at, how much a player wants and how much they dig in and that. I really value that as a coach. So, had a lot of that. And then, obviously, Des has had really good success. Desiree Kravchuk as a pro now and things like that. Enjoyed working with that squad. That was sort of the Gussie and Des and Stephanie, like Ebony Panaho, another Aussie on the team. Alex Osborne was another Aussie on the team. I think that was just a good team. Sort of the initial team that I worked with at Arizona State was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. How was Des? As a person, as a player, did you really connect with her on that kind of level as a coach as well? Yeah,
Des is really anybody that meets Des is she's very outgoing, very friendly, very outgoing, very easy to get along with, just a fun girl, you know what I mean? So I think you'd be hard pressed not to have a good relationship with Des if you're working with her. So super easy. As I said, I was just that's when I first moved to Arizona State, and that was her last year. But had quite a bit to do because she obviously made the NCAA singles tournament that year and was an All-American in singles. But to see the career that she's had after that is phenomenal. You know what I mean? It's obviously got some great skills, but you never can really predict like how you're going to win slams and this kind of thing. So that's really cool to look back on too, and it makes you proud for sure. You know
Absolutely.
What I mean?
Yeah, you just touched on this, and this is kind of something that I wanted to ask. When you're recruiting, what are some of the characteristics, or what are you really looking for to go like, I really want this player in my lineup?
Yep.
Obviously, you spoke about the importance of having heart and digging in, but there's some other key things that are really important to you as a coach?
Yeah, I think it's and I'll be super transparent with you here, right? You'll hear coaches, I think, say, oh, we want somebody that loves tennis. 100%, you need somebody that loves the game. Number one, they want to get better. They might have that ambition to be a professional player if you're recruiting at that level in Division 1. They have to want to be a good player because you're working with them every day for a 4-year period. If they don't like to get out on the practice court, it's going to be a little bit like pulling teeth. It's going to be a little bit of a strained relationship because I like tennis. I like to be on the court. I sort of love the competition aspect of it. If you don't really like that, well, then we're sort of not on the same page. You know what I mean? So they have to love tennis and love competing and want to do it because it can get a bit of a grind. And if you don't like to do it, it's not going to be easy. But at the same time, like I said, the talent has to be there if you want to perform at that level. So the tricky part is, as I said, I'll just be super transparent. You've got really good players or world-class players in the juniors that are good and they're going to be really successful in college, but they don't really want to kick on and play at that next level. So you really sort of having to decide, well, hey, how much am I sort of willing to sort of put up with here a little bit to sort of win and have these results? Because they're going to be able to win for me, but it's also probably not going to be that easy at the same time. You know, in a perfect world, you'd love a great player that really wants to be good, that wants to train hard and do all those things. But the realistic side of it is there's really not that many out there or there's not enough that every team can get enough of those players, you know what I mean?
And they're obviously going to be in high demand too.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah, they're in high demand. Everybody wants them, so then you know, hey, I want to take this player's a good player, but this might be a little bit of a red flag. That might be a little bit of a red flag. Yep. What's manageable, what's not, and that kind of deal.
As a recruiter, how do you find like the diamond in the rough, where you can kind of find that little gem
Yep.
that maybe not everyone's found? Like it'd be an interesting part of that, right?
Yeah, I
think
think
recruitment kind of area.
Yeah, I might be a little bit of a cynic here now, but I think that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
Because there's just too much data on the internet now. I guess when I was coming through, right, I remember probably Facebook was just starting. So recruiting was pretty much all connections or word of mouth or, hey, you know, John Pearce and Rob McKenzie, Australian, David McNamara is the coach. He knows some of the coaches from Adelaide that I know. We have one phone call. Boom, I committed the next week. Okay, that recruiting doesn't happen like that anymore. You know, now it's like, okay, well, I'm going to look at their UTR. That's obviously a big tool that a lot of the coaches use over there. I'm going to look at their ITF Junior. I'm going to look at their ATP or WTA. I'm going to look at their national tournament results. There's just so much data. And to be honest, if they don't have any of those metrics, well, chances are they're probably not going to be a good enough player for your team. Yep. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality of the situation. There's no sort of like, hey, here's a player playing in, you know, the backyard of Serbia and they just don't have the ability to play in enough tournaments, but they're amazing. You know what I mean? I think that used to happen and not anymore. You know what I mean? If they're good, they're going to have something on paper.
Yeah, and also so much footage. You can see so much footage.
Yep.
And so easy too.
Yeah, there's no hidden gems anymore.
Yeah. Gotcha. How is it working with women though? So
yep.
I think it's really important as a coach to change styles working with boys and girls and be adaptable to change your communication style working with girls especially.
Yep.
What's your experience through working with women at that level for so many years? What did you really start to understand to help be the best possible coach to work with women, for example? Yeah,
I think the emotional piece is big. You know what I mean? They want to feel that they're valued. You know what I mean? And that's why I think it's important to, you know, even just be super organized as far as like having a development plan for them. I think sort of shows like, hey, we're really invested in you. You know what I mean? This plan is just, you know, for you. We're going to have an individual meeting with you. We're going to have an individual practice for you. I think it just sort of shows them that you know, they're not just a number. I think is a little bit different than, say, working with guys. I think guys, you can sort of throw them out there with the team and they'll sort of figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, they'll all play together and they're okay with that. Whereas I think a lot of times with the girls, you need to show them that hey, no, you're really valued. This is planned for you. This is done for you. This is a priority. You're a priority for us. And that sort of emotional piece for sure. And then I guess I would just say communication style. I don't know if I'm terming this the right way, but probably can't be as blunt, you know what I mean, or direct, or just get straight to the point, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I want to get to this destination and this is what I want the message to get through, but I'm going to have to meander it a little bit and almost like you came up with the idea, you know what I'm sort of saying? So sort of lead them into that pathway of like, exactly, you know what I mean? That's exactly what, you know, you sort of came up with, and I agree with you and that kind of thing, rather than like, hey, this is the way it's got to be, you got to do this. You know, it doesn't always sort of go over that well compared to maybe with the guys, you know?
For sure. You also would have learned a lot working with players from different cultures too, because that would have been, one thing, doing that thing, but then also that might be completely different with an Italian player or with a Colombian player. And how did you start to kind of manage that? Was it just a lot of learning on the job and making mistakes and figuring out?
Yeah, I mean, I think coaching really is, we're all thieves, right? And I've heard this before, right? Like, it's true though. Like anything that I used in my coaching is not mine. You know what I mean? It's something that I grew up learning from, Mark, whether it's learn it from G, whether I learn it from Jason Kempf, whether I learn it from Sharon Hambley, whether I learn it from David McNamara or any Tony Roach, and any coach that I've sort of worked with before that's had any influence on my career. I'm like, hey, I really like that information. Didn't really like it when, it was presented to me this way or that way. And you sort of piece it together and sort of make your own of it. And then, as you get better and then it goes the same for college. It's not just about coaching an individual player. Now it's how to manage a team. So, something that I, learned when I was a player as a senior. We had an assistant come in, Tanner Stump. Really liked him as a coach. He ended up winning a national championship at Florida. All of a sudden we're doing individual meetings, we're doing player development plans, we're doing, hey Matt, you're about to play a match. I've not been on the court with you during a match before. Like, how do you want me to approach you? Do you want me to come and talk to you a lot? Do you want to talk to me on the change of ends? Because in competition, it's the heat of the battle, right? You've got emotions, you've got tensions running a little bit high. So I would sort of have those meetings with the players beforehand. Hey, how do you want me to talk to you when we're in competition? Do you want to talk to me, or do you want me to talk to you? Do you like a conversation, or do you want me to just give you the information? What do you prefer? So there's no, well, I lost this match and, you said it to me this way in the heat of the moment. I didn't like that and that's why I lost. You know what I mean? And you see a lot of that, to be honest, as far as like, even on the tour, you know what I mean? Coaches will come out, they'll say it, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, I didn't like the way they said to me, like that to me, and that cost me the match. Well, let's clear that up on the front end and make sure that it's really clear how you want to be communicated to and what language you want me to use, and then we're on the same page. So when we look back, it's not, I didn't have the result I wanted because of this or because of that. It's, all right, I've just got to get better at this for the next match,
Perfect. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. What advice would you give to kids that are aspiring to go to quite a high-level college?
Yep.
Let's say they're in Year 9, they're tracking really well in the state. What are the necessary steps? What are some of the things that they might not know that they need to do in the next few years to get themselves in a position to actually go to a high-level college?
Yep. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to, as a junior player, and I still coach some juniors and stuff like that too, pretty high-level juniors, is not to get caught up, and it's easier said than done, being great at 12 or 14 or, even 15, you know what I mean? I think you've got, look at the development side of it, you know what I mean? Try to just continue to get better as a player. Don't sort of shun, I don't want to practice with Luke because he's a rival of mine and I don't want to lose a practice set to him or whatever. It's actually going to make everybody better, you know what I mean? And I think that's really key, is practicing with as many different players as you can and trying to get the level around you up, because at the end of the day, they're not really your competitors, right? You're not competing with people just from Adelaide or just from your academy. You know what I mean? You're competing for a scholarship against, a player from Romania, against a player from France, against a player from Spain. So it's very easy for people to be in an environment and think, oh, that's a competitor of mine. I don't want to, get them better, or I don't want to lose to them or whatever at the age of 13, which is really, really silly when you look at it that way. So just continue to get better. Obviously, academics is an integral piece. You need to have graduated high school. You need a certain amount of core classes that you need to meet to be eligible to play college tennis at Division 1. But then just be the best player that you can be, and whether that's UTR, as I said, is probably the thing that the coaches use the most. It's like any ranking system. That can it be manipulated a little bit? Sure. Is it totally accurate? Probably not, but it's about as good as it can get, depending on, the data that you're going off and things like that. But if you get better, then your UTR is going to go up. Your ranking is going to go up. So just continue to sort of get better,
100%. So this led to you starting your own college recruitment agency.
Yep.
How did that come about, and what are your intentions behind actually starting that?
Yeah, so I think as a coach, when I was coaching in college over there, there's a lot of agents or consultants or whatever you want to call yourself from all parts of the world. And what I sort of find, or what I found with that, and it still does happen, to be totally honest, is you've got people that were maybe a player in college, and I played college tennis. Okay, I'm going to help people come over, And I think, great, you've got more knowledge than somebody that's never been over to the States and not played in college, but there is so many different layers to it that maybe they still don't know, that after being a coach, the process that actually you need to go through to get admitted to a university, how coaches negotiate scholarships. Just because they're talking with you doesn't mean they're offering you a scholarship. They might be talking to 25 players for one spot. You know what I mean? The time, like how they're communicating on those calls. Are they interested? Are they just sort of stringing you along? Those kinds of things. So just having all that insider knowledge, I think is huge. And then, 100%. And then knowing the coaches as well, I think is huge as far as like a player's experience. You know what I mean? You can go to the States and play college tennis, but what's your personality like, Luke? Do you like somebody that is going to be on you? Do you actually want a tennis coach, or are you okay with somebody that's just a manager and really encourages you a lot? Because you'll see a wide range of coaches in the States. Some have very limited tennis background as far as a player and that kind of thing. And then you have the other side of the spectrum. You have, amazing playing careers and great coaches. But, this coach on this side that doesn't maybe have the playing background, their team is unbelievable because they're a very good fundraiser. They're very good at talking with donors and boosters, and they're able to raise a lot of money, and they get a lot of fans in the stands, and it's a great product. But as far as, maybe your development as a player, if you want to get your forehand better, might not be the best place for you. You know what I mean? So it's just dependent on the personality of the student athlete or the player coming through, and maybe what they work best with, and just having that knowledge of the coaches over there personally, I think is hugely beneficial.
100%. With your experience, though, you sound like you'd have the perfect just attributes and all of the experience to run an agency like this, seeing it from all different angles. So how's it actually going so far? Yeah,
so I just obviously I finished up college coaching last season, which was May of 2024. And then since the summer of 2024, I've pretty much just sort of rolled this out. I probably have eight players right now that we work with. When I say we, myself and Theodora Kiparoglu. So I went to high school with Theodora at Marriottville. And we've known each other, sort of like myself and Matt Stevens, for probably 25 years. And she went over to play college tennis, and we still keep in touch and stuff like that. So, she helps a little, and she's in Adelaide, so she sort of helps out a little bit on this side of it as well. But we work with players from all over the world. So right now we've got, player from Singapore that we work with, Indonesia, South Africa. Diana Badalian here in Adelaide that we work with, Liz Ivanov from Sydney, and then two girls from Utah as well, over in the States. So it's a little bit, when I started it up and I just told a few people that this is what I'm going to be doing, it's just, word of mouth, like former players, like I had a great former player from South Africa. She works with a girl. That's sort of how we get connected with that one there and things like that. So,
So how does it work? So, for example, like Diana, she's still in school.
Yep.
What do you offer her before she actually goes, and how does it actually work? I'm super curious here.
Yeah, the process. Okay, so the first thing that we do is we'll get with the player, and just outline what college tennis looks like. What are the benefits of college tennis? Why would you want to go over to play college tennis? Because I think, like I sort of mentioned, players will grow up in Adelaide and, I want to be a pro player. Well, have you considered, playing college tennis? Because, you're getting an academic degree that you can use for the rest of your life. You're getting, 8 players that are the same level, maybe better than you, on the team to practice with every day. Not that easy when you get to that age here in Adelaide, especially as a female player. The numbers really start to dwindle big time. So that's going to be hugely beneficial for you. You're getting great coaching individually as a team. You're getting to travel, play competition. And it's all paid for. You know what I mean? So what can you lose from trying that out? You know what I mean? What is there to lose from it? One of my sells as a college coach was like, hey, there's 3 reasons maybe why you might consider college tennis. And it's hey, you might be a great level player, but you may be lacking one of these 3 things. You might not have the training environment. You might not have 7, 8 other players to practice with every day, which, let's be honest, people don't. You know what I mean? In college, you will. I want to play a set with Luke. Great, we'll go play a set, or we want to hit some serves or whatever it is. You've got that players around you every day at your disposal. The second thing is, a coach, if you're not part of TA or the system here, changes a lot. But if you're not part of that TA system, well, you don't have a coach traveling with you to these events, and that's really expensive, which leads into the third part of, you might be a great player, you might have the skills, well, you don't have the finances to play. And people, I'm going to play for a year and see how it goes. Well, let's be honest, if you want to be a pro player, like you say you want to be a pro player, in my mind, that's a top 100 player in the world. It's not a 1-year process, right? You're looking at probably a 4-year process, okay? You get on the computer, you're 1,000 in the world. You have a great year, you slash it in half, you go 500. You have another great year, you slash it in half, you go to 250. Well, you've played for 3 years there. So that's 3 years of funding at, I don't know how much, 100,000 Australian dollars maybe to play and have a coach and do all these things. How many people can afford that? 300K. So why would you not?
Perspective, yeah.
Yeah. Why would you not go over and have, a college degree and probably, between $400,000 and $500,000 US paid for, for you?
Yeah.
Why not?
100%. Like when you put it like that, it becomes so obvious in my mind. And then in that process, you actually figure out whether you really, really want it as well. And then while getting an education. And then you've seen players when they finish that and then they do go travel and play, they've been able to climb the rankings really, really fast.
Yep.
I mean, Lukic,
Yep.
Walton, for example.
Yep.
Walton came out of college, did obviously very well for himself at college, and then was in the top 100 within maybe 2.5 years, and went to 500 to 150, just like that. Just from went to 500 just within, I reckon, four months, 6-7 tournaments, just a bang. So I think it does really accelerate the process. Is that something that you've seen when they've given it a crack after, if they're really at that level? And
yeah, you said it right there. If you're the level, you're the level. You know what I mean? It doesn't come down to, finances. And if you're 500 or 600 in the world, yeah, it's a financial issue, but you're also not the level to be a top 100 player. If you're the level, you're going to have results right away coming out of college. You know what I mean? So, I think you get a really good indication when you're in college as to where you really sit as well, because you're not just playing college events, you're playing pro tournaments throughout the year. Colleges are able to pay for you to play pro events in the fall. You know what I mean? You're also able to play pro events all summer long. So if you're having success, you know where you stand. You know what I mean? So the players that are doing really well and experiencing success in college, you get a good idea of, hey, when I step out of this environment, I give it a crack full time, where you're going to be sitting. Yeah.
I think that's why this pathway is so important. So just going back to Diana, for example, you said the first thing, you outline what that college experience looks like.
Correct. Why you should go down that path.
Yep.
And I'm obviously a little bit biased because I've done it, but I think it's a no-brainer.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's a $400,000 to $500,000 US scholarship if you're getting a full scholarship.
Yeah.
$500,000 in your 4-year career. So that's the first thing of why maybe you should go.
Yep.
What are you looking for out of the experience? You know what I mean? Are you wanting to be a professional tennis player? Do you want to just get a great academic degree? Do you just want to have the experience of going to America, meeting people from all over the world, building a network for yourself, going to a place like Florida or whatever, maybe the social aspect, What is it really you're looking for out of the experience? Because like we touched on before, there's different reasons why you could go over there and why people do go over there. Academically, she's got to obviously be on track and have those core subjects. So we sort of help them select their classes, particularly in year 11 and year 12. You cannot get that wrong. You get that wrong, it does not matter, right? So you're not going to be eligible to play. So that's obviously a really critical piece. And we have somebody that worked at Arizona State, just retired for 30 years. So she's sort of our, NCAA certification specialist. Mm. She'll run through their transcripts for us, go through all that, make sure they're on track. And then we sort of submit all their documents to the NCAA to make sure they're going to be cleared. There's a profile that you need to create with the NCAA Eligibility Center. We run through all of that for them. It will go through questions about their amateurism, prize money they've made, tournaments they've played, teams they've been on since 14 years old. Because what the NCAA is looking for or trying to weed out is professionals coming to play college sports.
Sure.
So we sort of navigate through that whole process. And then probably the big piece of it is getting them connected with the appropriate schools. You know what I mean? Knowing where to look. I think a lot of a lot of people will maybe write schools, or I'm not getting any responses. Well, you're probably reaching out to the wrong schools, and coaches are getting bombarded with emails all the time. They don't know the player. It's not really that appealing of a player to them. They just ignore the email. You know what I mean? So having the coaches know me is obviously, it's really big, because they're going to respond because I have a personal relationship with them,
Yeah, you act as that middleman to connect. Right?
Yeah.
But rather than if Diana or someone else was just reaching out personally, it's like, well...
Yeah, who is this person?
Yeah. And if you're being bombarded all the time, stuff like that, you could be an amazing player, but that's going to slip through the cracks.
Yep. Unless you're super, super top tier. It's easy to overlook, but if you've got somebody following up, putting you on the radar, it's very, very helpful. Yeah. So... that whole aspect, getting them connected with the coaches, putting them in a group message with the coaches, getting them on calls with those coaches. And then, when it really gets down to the nitty gritty, it's, hey, is this just a conversation that this coach is having with you? Are they really interested? What is the conversation looking like? Are they offering you a visit? Even if you go on a visit, that doesn't mean they're going to offer you a scholarship. You know what I mean? So just knowing how coaches negotiate scholarships and what the landscape actually really looks like is big.
Do you sit in on those meetings though? How does that work?
No, so I communicate with both of them after the fact of the call.
Sure.
So I'll talk to the coach. Hey, shoot it to me straight a little bit. Are you really interested? Are you not? Hey, Diana, what did you feel like with that coach there? Did you feel like they were interested? Were you the one sort of chasing them? That kind of deal as well. Yeah. I've had agents as a coach, not many. One agent sat in on the calls with the player. I think it's a little bit strange, to be honest, because I want to get to know the player. Like, sure. I'm not recruiting the agent. So, and I think it's also important for the player to, be mature enough to communicate with the coach, because when they get over there, you're going to have that relationship with the coach. So I don't sit in on those calls, but I'll definitely get a feel myself as to the interest level of both parties,
Sure. What questions, as a coach, what questions did you ask the players to get to know them?
So just general conversation. Hey, do you have brothers and sisters? What do you do in your spare time? Outside of tennis, have you played any other sports? Do you, what do you do for practice? What does your practice schedule look like? Just things like that. And you can roll with someone for quite a bit of time. You know what I mean? Once you sort of get that relationship going, and what do your parents do? Things like that. So I think a lot of coaches don't actually do that. You know what I mean? A lot of coaches will just get on and sort of, hey, this is my school and this is what we can offer you and this is the way it is, rather than be personable with the players. And I think the players really, they do want that personable approach. You know what I mean? They are looking to go to a place where they can have a conversation with the coach rather than just, okay, you're my tennis coach and that's it. You know what I mean? So just general conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And once you build that relationship, then you ask obviously the tougher questions, or
100%.
The most important questions, right? Yeah.
And then on the back end, obviously once sort of say they get an offer from a school, signing the agreement, the national letter of intent. Yeah. And then you've got to get admitted to the specific university. So that's great. You committed to the school and the coach wants you on the team and you want to go on the team. Well, now you have to get admitted to the university. So, just the paperwork associated with that, you are going to need like MMR, measles, mumps, rubellas, like proof of those sort of injections. All the paperwork that the school requires as far as getting an I-20 with the school, which is a document that you need to get a visa at the US Embassy, just helping them navigate through that whole process.
There's a fair bit that goes into it. Like if you don't actually have the agency or someone helping you, it would be pretty easy to be super overwhelmed with everything involved. Yeah,
because I think what you find is you do one step and then it's like, I've got the next step, you know what I mean? Like I thought it was done, and then more, and then more, and then more, or you think it's all done. You've got the scholarship agreement, or they've committed, or you've committed, and then we need this document, or we need this document, or there's a follow up here, or a follow up here. It's sort of it can be tedious. It can feel like it's never going to end. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So obviously you haven't been in it that long, but do you have any success stories so far of getting someone to a certain college or anything like that? Yeah,
so we just started it and we've placed one girl already from Indonesia. She's going to UIC, which is the University of Illinois, Chicago. Mm-hmm. Knew the coach, Elizabeth Lumpkin, good player, played at UCLA. She coached at Oregon. I was at Arizona State, so I coached against her at Oregon, and that was sort of the connection I had with her there for Joanne, was the girl that we were working with there. So that's going to be a great that's a great opportunity for Joanne because URC's in Chicago. Obviously, great location. It's a really good academic school. So I think it's ranked 80 in the national university. So it's a top 100 school in America. That's across all divisions, which is, really highly ranked school. She wants to really focus on her academics. And then obviously she's on a full scholarship playing Division I college tennis. So that's a great start for us for sure.
Amazing. And any kind of goals, or you're going full on into this now? What are some of your intentions, and how do you want to step it up moving into the next year or two ahead?
Yeah, I think as long as it's the biggest thing going into it is I want to be personable with it. A lot of agencies will just be about mass numbers. All sports, mass numbers, get them to a school, that's it, job's done. I'm not really looking to do that at all, actually.
Are you only focusing on tennis though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason I am doing that is because I feel I'm an expert in that field. 100%. So, for example, like not only the process, because you could go through any sport, you could send a basketball player or soccer player over. Great, you know the process, but as far as knowing the coaches, personally, how they operate, what their program looks like, I think is really big as far as somebody's going to have a good experience or not. Ideally, we're looking for a player to go to the school for 4 years, graduate from that school, have a great experience, awesome, stay in the States, come back home, whatever. We're not looking to, hey, they went over there for a semester, didn't like it, didn't get along with the coach, transferred to this school, and that kind of deal. So we're not looking to get mass numbers and just ship them over there kind of thing.
For sure. I mean, with your experience and the connections and how you know all the coaches and how they operate, that gives you such an advantage. Are there many other people that are in your situation that actually have that?
Yeah.
Would you say this is pretty unique?
Yeah, I don't know one other person, to be honest. I take that back. So as I was saying before, there's a lot of these agencies all over the world.
Yeah.
I don't know any other college coaches recently that are doing this. Yeah, they're all sort of former players that have played their 4 years and then they come back or go to their home country and sort of help people through it and whatnot. But we're very niche as far as having that coaching experience as well as the playing experience for sure.
Yeah. So what is this called if people want to reach out and potentially get in contact with you?
Yeah. So First Class College Consulting is what it's called. We have a website. Obviously got an Instagram page as well. Yep. And then you can contact me directly on WhatsApp, Instagram, email on our website. Super, super easy. Yep.
Yep. Amazing. Well, this has been very insightful, and one thing that we're talking a lot about with our players is to really educate yourself on the college pathway.
Yep.
And just if you're serious about it, really deeply consider, because the chances of going pro, like you said, when we talk about pro, we say essentially top 100.
Yep.
That is going to be a long process, and you need a lot of funding as well. And if you're not getting support from TA, it's almost impossible.
Yep.
So college, all the pros and all of the advantages that you've been speaking about here, I think it's important to listen, and hope parents listen to this conversation and take a lot away from it. So any kind of final kind of comments or advice for maybe even parents potentially that may be on the fence to sway them?
Yeah, I think one always thing that I would say about college tennis is you can't lose anything by going to play college tennis, right? There's nothing really negative that can come away from the situation, right? You gain world experience, you know what I mean? You're going to a different country, you're meeting so many people, not only from the States, but you have teammates from other parts of the world too. That might lead to, hey, in the summer I want to go play club tennis in Germany with my teammate. Well, great. Well, now you've got connections in Europe as well. I mean, what kind of worldly experience is that for a kid growing up in Adelaide? It's amazing, and then, it's not like home is going anywhere. If you don't like it, or you get homesick, or you graduate, well, home's always going to be here. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I always said, hey, just try it. You know what I mean? Because I think talking with people after they've done it, very few people would say, oh yeah, I really regret doing that. You know what I mean? People are, I wish I had another year, or I had another 2 years of eligibility, So I definitely don't think you can lose anything by going the college tennis pathway. And if you're a super high level player, the top level of college tennis is professional tennis, and you've seen it both on the men's and the women's side now. Even the women's coming through: Diana Schneider, Emma Navarro, Peyton Stearns. I mean, these are top players in the world. So not on the men's, you've had it with Isner, Kevin Anderson, Steve Johnson, and tons. Giron, Mackie McDonald.
Shelton.
Yep, Ben Shelton. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, and then the Aussies, Vukic, JP Smith, Walton now coming through. So there's a lot. John Pearce, obviously, in doubles. So, if you're a super high level player, the resources and the level of competition is definitely there for you, for sure.
Yeah. If I had my time again, I definitely would have taken the college route. So thanks for taking me down a bit of regret myself. Thanks so much for coming down today, Matt. I really appreciate it. I think really insightful, great conversation as well for me to know about as a coach to help guide my players and help them through that process and potentially get them in contact with someone like you. So thanks again.
Perfect. No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.